Let's start the meeting. Good evening and welcome to the June month Members Day meeting. And I'm very happy to see all of you joining today's meeting. So let's go ahead with the agenda. So let me first take you through the past activities, and then I will touch base on the upcoming events. After that, we will have our monthly presentation, and then after the presentation and the Q&A, we'll get our interest group leaders to give the updates, and then we can have if time permits, we can take some questions, comments after the interest groups update. So I would kindly request all of you to mute your video and also your mics. That will give the presenter to, you can hear the presenter's voice really well without any disturbances. PSSL office is currently closed, and we will let you know when we are going to open it as soon as we figure it out the details. In the meantime, if you need any assistance, you can reach out to Ruini on her email and the PSSL mobile number. So for the time being, till we sort out the opening of the office, we will send you the updates, announcements via email as well as on WhatsApp messages. If you are on the Facebook members forum also, we will update all our events and give you any updates there as well. Now, if you want to give us any suggestions, if you have any queries, you can send that to me on our photosocSL at gmail.com email address. We would love to hear your ideas, any queries. We would love to get that and then give you the feedback as soon as possible. So please do that. And so the membership cards are currently ready. So Ruini will get through to you how you can send out an email to you all, like how you all can collect it. And also I would encourage if anyone has not paid their dues for the 2020, it's a small amount, and that will help us to do our upkeeps of the place, because there are certain fixed costs that we need to incur, whether we close it or whether keep it running. So if you can, if you have not done your payment, I would encourage you to do that. So, and also if you like to attend the annual general meeting, you need to make your subscription for 2020 by the 20th of this month. So as all of you know that the last month had been a very packed event. It's packed with so many events. Let me run through once again what we had. So we closed the Stay Home, Stay Safe contest on the 15th of May. So the judging will take place on the 13th of June, and we will announce the winners after the judging process. Then also we had 2 free sessions of a Photoshop Q&A with Pisara. One on the 6th, that is for all the past participants of his program. And then we open up the same session for everyone, on all the members, on the 24th of May. Both sessions were attended by quite a number of members, and that session was very well received because you got a chance of ask your technical questions from him. So I hope those who have joined the sessions had enjoyed it and got your questions answered. Then on the 16th of May, we had a mini PSSL photo puri. You know that in last year, in the month of November, we had a full day session of an event called Photo Puri. We thought that while we were in lockdown, it would be good for us to have another session, a mini version of it through Zoom. So we organized that, and we had 4 presenters and who did really well. That's Raj. He gave us a presentation on In Search of Snow Leopard, and Ruchira shared how he organized his photo shoot with Resha and Chetana. Ranmali took us through how she, what she did with the monochrome photographs. And Nilan shared under the theme of Travel Eye of his travel and street photographs. And they did really well, and we all enjoyed it. And once again, I thank you for all the presenters. Then we had a very interesting session titled Life Lessons from Photography. That was done by Professor Arvind Hangwala. I know every one of us enjoyed the session because it was a different, different way of presenting, and sometimes we forget certain simple aspects of life that can be see through our photographs. So he has taken us through 13 life lessons, and also he kind of said that that session triggered him to work on a book, and I hope he has started, and we wish all the best for him to come up with a really good book on life lessons from photography. And thank you once again, Ravi, for your presentation. Then on Sunday, we had Pandula presenting us travel photography in competition. So that is the very first event for the month of June. That also was well attended by members, as well as we have opened the session for the others in our database. So we had a good participation. Unfortunately, I had to leave the session a bit early. I hope you all enjoyed the session. Then now we started open judging in last year just to give you all an opportunity to meet the judges and see how the judging process takes place. But with the COVID-19 situation, we did not have any chance of continuing with it. So currently we are looking at a way of figuring out like how to still do. Of course, we can do a judging that will be not open judging. It has to be a closed one. But I think we really want to have an open one and maintain the continuity of it. So we'll get back to you with the dates and how best we can do the open judging once again. So till that time, I would request all of you to continue to submit your entries every month. So for this month, you have already received an email with the events that we have planned for the month. And the first one we have already had with Pandula, and the second one that's going to be on the 14th of June at 4 to 5 p.m. We have Laya presenting music, people, and photography. I think this is the first time we are touching on the topic of music. So it is going to be an interesting one. So I would encourage all of you to join the session and encourage Laya also to give a good presentation. We're looking forward to that, Laya. Then on the 13th and 14th, after we done the 2 Q&A sessions, some of you requested to have a basic course once again. So on the 13th and 14th, we are planning to have a basic Photoshop for maximum of 6 participants. It's going to be online. So since we are doing it online and to give more support for the participants, so we we have restricted the number to 6. I know some of you have already reserved your slots, and if you have not done so, I would kindly request you to make a reservation and payment so that that we can have the session on the 13th and 14th. It's from 9 to 12. Once you register, we will let you know the connection details. So what we thought was like, let's keep this continuity of mini Photopuri. The one lesson that we have learned as organizers of the event, packing 4 into 1 hour, 4 presentation into 1 hour is too much, because then if you want to have more questions, answers, that for more discussion on the topics, we will not have enough time. So this time it will be only 2 presenters. That's the first one is going to be Mahin Vimala, and then the second, that's on exploring new frontiers during lockdown, and the second one is from yoga. He is very passionate about environment, so his topic is going to be on moments of people's livelihoods and environment. He will touch on more on street and travel photography. So I request once again for you all to join that session. You would have already received the notices on Sunday for our annual general meeting, which now we have planned for the 27th June at 3:30. This time we are going to have a virtual meeting because of the COVID-19 situation. So those who have already paid your annual membership fees for 2020 will be eligible to join the meeting, and we will send out the meeting links to those who have paid the subscription. If you have not done so, still you would like to join the session, I would encourage you to make your subscription so that we can facilitate it. Because the timeline is very limited, so we would appreciate if you can do that so faster. And send your deposit slips to Ruvini so that she can account for your payment. Then on the education programs, as you know that currently we are, before the COVID-19 situation, we have been conducting a session certificate in digital photography. However, because we are not allowed to gather, the last session of the first intake is yet to be completed. However, we have decided to have another session in July. Hopefully, by that time, we should be able to conduct it. So if you know anyone would like to join the sessions, once we share the flyer, please share with your friends, families, and support us in having to have that session. Right. So that's all I have to say from the PSSS side. And then now we have come to the I know all of you today join with us to listen to the today's presentation that is Discovering Island by Ms. Hiranti De Silva, right? I don't need to introduce Hiranti to any one of you because she's known to all of you. So just to touch on, like, you have already read the bio that we sent with the flyer. So she has been, I think her interest in wildlife and nature, according to what she says, in very young age. And that is by having traveled with her family to many wild parks in Sri Lanka. And then, of course, she loves to go to Yala. And whenever she gets a chance, I know she say that I'm in Yala. So with that, she developed the interest to do serious photography. And got into wildlife photography. And as I know her, now her interest is not only on wildlife photography and landscapes. Now she is a good photographer in travel as well as in on street. So as we know, she's by profession, she's a banker, and the most importantly for us, she's the first lady president of the Photographic Society of Sri Lanka. So without spending more time in taking more time, I would now invite Hiranti to make a presentation. Over to you, Hiranti.
Hi everyone, can you see my screen?
Yes, very well.
Okay.
We can see.
Yes, can see.
Yeah, we can see Hiranti. It's good.
Okay. Okay. Discovering Iceland is a presentation on my trip to Iceland last year in October. It is actually, it's mostly a landscape presentation. So if you are not a keen landscape photographer, it might bore you. But I suggest that you close your eyes and imagine that you're in Iceland between 4 and 6 degrees of temperature, nice sunshine, miles and miles of open field, and then the open fields end up with ice-capped mountains. So if you imagine you're there, you might enjoy this presentation better. So our trip, okay, my traveling partner is Professor Varuni De Silva, who is also a member of PSSL. And I got to know Varuni through PSSL. Other than her being a psychiatrist professor and me being a city banker, we had a lot of things in common. She and I, like me, she also loved wildlife photography. And then suddenly we got interested in doing landscape. So we did travel a little bit here in Sri Lanka. And then we wanted to do a trip outside. So actually we had to decide between Iceland and so our choice was between Iceland and Norway for these Lofton Islands, but we decided on Iceland because it had more than just more than the Northern Lights. Iceland had different landscapes. So we searched the web. One of the specific things was that we wanted it to be a photo tour, a photo tour, not just a tour where you're just taken on site. We wanted it to be a photo tour. So we went online, searched for various companies, and we came across Iceland Photo Tours. And so we found it to be a good company. And so we went and booked the thing online. And it so happened that normally they have about 6 to 8 people average in one of the groups. But in this instance, it was only Varuni and me in that group, and it was like a private tour for us. The guide himself is a photographer. The guide himself is a photographer, and which was advantageous because more than taking to the landscape places that you can photograph, he also showed you composition. So first time around in a place, it was very important that somebody showed us some of the compositions. So if you talk about Iceland, Iceland is a Nordic island. So other than Iceland, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Greenland, and Faroe Islands are the other Nordic islands. It has a population of 364,000 people, area of 1,003 square kilometers, making Iceland the most sparsely populated country in Europe. So that is why it's so beautiful, open spaces, miles and miles of empty space. That's the reason. And capital of Iceland is Reykjavik. So this is where Iceland is. And yeah, so it is in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's an island surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. a little bit about the landscapes of Iceland. The Iceland is a plateau formed by volcanic activities. And to date, still it is one of the countries with most amount of volcanic activities, because the mid-Atlantic ridge, which separates the Eurasian plate and the North American tectonic plate, runs across Iceland from southwest to northeast of Ireland, right across the country. So still there is a lot of activity, volcanic activities in the region, and generally a volcano erupts like once in every 3 years. Iceland, so it has two things. One thing is the landscape that is created because of the volcanic nature, and also because it is in the northern hemisphere, the landscape that it has around ice. So actually it is also known as the country of ice and fire. So when you look at the landscapes, it is a diversified landscape, because you have the lava fields, the sea stacks, and the black sand beaches because of the volcanic activities. And then you have the glaciers and the waterfall, the glaciers and the ice and the snow mountains because of the fact that it is in the northern hemisphere. So that is why it is called the land of ice and fire. So this was our trip. So we started at Reykjavik, and then we spent 2 nights here. This area is called the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. We spent 2 nights here. Then we traveled to, so this is northwest of Iceland. Then we traveled to south of Iceland, and we spent 1 night in this town of Vik, and then 3 nights near this town near Diamond Beach. So my initial set of slides will cover this area, the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. So the Snæfellsnes Peninsula is also named as Iceland in miniature because of the wealthy and diversified features that it has. And also the many national sites can be found in that area, including the Snæfellsnes volcano, regarded as one of the symbols of Iceland. So it stretches 55 miles into the Atlantic Ocean. So this is the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. So it has all these landscapes in that area. So our first stop was at this waterfall, Hraunfoss waterfall. So this is so this waterfall can be seen at different levels. So this is a picture I took with my 70-200 because I wanted, this is only a small space of the waterfall. It was taken with a 70-200 lens because I wanted to concentrate on that area to show you the rock formations and to get more details. By the way, I have put the aperture and the shutter speed I've used for each of the pictures under the photograph. So just for your reference, what aperture and shutter speed I've used. So this is another view of the same waterfall. So see the one of the lovely features of the waterfalls in Iceland is that the waterfalls the drops are very short, but they are very wide, and it drops at different levels like this. So it making it very beautiful. So this is taken with my 24-70 lens, a more wider angle shot. This is another shot, from another view from a little bit further down and at a different level. Again, you can see a longer stretch of the waterfall. Again, it falls at so many places like this. So then the next stop was at this Black Church. Actually, it's a famously photographed place. Actually, you can see photographs from this at various exhibitions that we have of this Black Church. So it has the tombstone. So this is the church premises, and it has tombstones around here. So what we did was we walked around the church looking for various compositions that we can take photographs. So this is actually more than a landscape. It's actually a travel photograph. So I kind of like this composition with this one cross and the mountains and look at the sky. So Iceland, one of the great things about Iceland is it gives you beautiful skies. If the weather is good, the cloud formations are beautiful. So this is the front of the church, a photograph taken from the front of the church. All these are with my wide angle lens. And this is from the back of the church. So taken from the grassland at the back. And then I use this as the leading line to the church. There again, I love the formation in the sky. Here again, I love the formation. It's like converging towards the church. Of course, when I do post-processing, I use quite a bit of Nik filters to bring out the details. I don't overdo it, but I do use it to bring out some of these details. So the next, the sunset that day was at this Gandagra. These are cliffs. So because it's a volcanic country, you get a lot. These cliffs are a unique feature to Iceland, and you get various forms of these cliffs. When you go through my photographs, you can see the different formations of cliffs at different places that I have taken. So this is also because of volcanic activities, and this is the remaining of a crater, large crater that is the remaining part of it now. So this was just before sunset. Actually, I took 2 pictures. One for the sky and one for the foreground, and combined it to Photoshop using mask. So if you see the settings for the sky is a much faster shutter speed than the settings for the foreground. So if the shutter speed for the foreground is slower to get the movement in the sea. So this is again same area, same picture, but this is after sunset in the blue hour. Actually, I like this picture because of the colors, and then again the formation in the sky. So the blues, the oranges, the yellows is what makes this picture beautiful. So in the night that day, we went back to the Black Church to hoping to see the Northern Lights. And in the first night itself, we were lucky to see the Northern Lights. But of course, when we were there, on all the days, on the days that we saw the Northern Lights, it was just a second level, third level activity of the Northern Lights. Sometimes it goes up to 5, 6 level of activity. That is when you get the entire sky lit up and the Northern Lights moving, like giving you a beautiful scenery. But we were not that lucky. But what we saw was second and third level of second and third level activity. So this is what it looks like. So see, if you see f2.8 and 8 seconds were the settings, and ISO was at about 3200. So we stayed in this little town called Arnaspati. See, the hotels in Iceland are not big. Those are like little motels, but beautifully in beautiful settings. So this where we stayed was just a 5-minute walk from this place. So this is sunrise. Say again another cliff formation. This again I have taken 2 photographs because to get the dynamic range in the colors only I did that. That day the sky was not that dynamic, but because I took 2 photographs, I managed to get this dynamic range in the colors. So one to the sky and one to the foreground. Foreground is again a slower shutter speed. That is how I have got this movement, the slow movement in the water. I like so these are the basalt rocks that they call it, which is formed as a result of volcanic lava cooling fast. Lava cooling only forms this rock. So it's a feature of Iceland, and but of course for photographs it gives a beautiful look. So one thing about landscape photography is that you need to do research before you go. You must select where you want to go. Depending on the pictures you have to take, you have to select beforehand where you want to go, and actually also select the time of year. Now, for example, if you want to see the Milky Way in Sri Lanka, it is only during the period from September to March. And then again, it is seen only in certain time at certain areas only. So as a landscape photographer, it's very, very important that you do research and you plan your trips before you go. Plus, you got to be lucky. Even after you plan, you may find that the sky is not dynamic. The sky is a very dull sky on that day. So luck also plays a big part in taking a good photograph. So this is another waterfall known as the Sheep's Waterfall. Here again, very short fall. This is again the basalt rock, and then look at the sky. Another thing is for a landscape photographer, there are certain traits that you need if you're a landscape photographer. You could have patience and persistence, because sometimes you get a good shot to the same place, you may have to go over and over and over again to get the beautiful sky you want, because the sky may not be there on that day, the beautiful colors for sunrise and sunset. So you got to have patience and persistence. Plus you got to be physically fit for because some of these places you need to walk on foot to get to the photographing site. So physical fitness and patience and persistence is required for a landscape photographer, plus love for the environment is a must. So this is a lava field. So lava fields are as a result of the lava flowing onto low ground, and which forms then what is called the basalt. It's a rock formed from the rapid cooling of lava. So that is this black rock. And then on top of the black rock, the moss grows. So when you walk on these fields, it's like walking on a sponge. So these fields are massive. So we did visit several fields, and what we did was we walked around looking at various compositions various good compositions. So these are few, I will show first some of the few compositions that I have taken. So this, what I like is I want to show the magnitude of the lava field, plus the mountains and the snow cap on the mountains, and of course the sky. So this is another picture. This is actually this is a wide angle shot with my wide angle lens. This is with the 70-200 because I wanted to focus in this area. The sunlight makes the picture dynamic, and this is the what do you call it? The lower part of a hill. So again, the sun is falling, giving all this the orangey looking color. This is again from my 70-200, less focused on a lesser area to get the textures of this, and then of course also the hill. So you have these little flowers growing. So I actually took this picture because I like the orange contrast against the green and the blacks. So this is another picture of the lava field. Again, the highlights and the shadows, the blacks, the greens, the snow-capped mountains, and then of course the beautiful sky. So this is again, so we visited 2 lava fields. So this was another lava field. So in that field, you got these little yellow flowers growing. So I just thought I composed the yellow flowers with the green and the lava field in the background. This is from the 70-200 lens. Okay, so another beautiful feature in Iceland is the beautiful churches. So you're taken to these churches. So I showed you the black church. This is another church, and then the importance of going with a photographic tour company is that you're taken to these places at the right time. So this is at about, I think, 2 or 3 o'clock, when the sun was falling on the church, giving it this beautiful red, orange colors in the photograph. So this is again from the 70-200 lens, and I use this. I took it from down the road, and I used the road as the leading line to the church. Okay, so that day, the sunset was going to be at this Mount Kakafella and Kakafella Foss, one of the most famous mountains in Iceland, and it is the most beautiful spot in this Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Mount Kakafella is a freestanding mountain, 463 meters in height. It is also known as the Church Mountain, as it is considered to resemble a church. In front of the Mount Kakafell is the Kakafella Foss waterfall. It is a low-lying waterfall with only 54 feet drop, but it drops in 2 broad steps. But the fact that the looming mountain over the waterfall makes it a beautiful sight, and it is one of the most photographed locations in Iceland. So we were there for sunset, and then we had dinner and went back there to see whether we were lucky to see the northern lights. So these are my pictures. So this is soon after sunset in the blue hour that I took this picture. What I like about this picture is these south formations and the orangey colors, the blue sky. Yeah. So this okay. So we were lucky that day. We did see the northern lights. And I love this picture because see, I got the northern lights behind the Mount Kakafella. And see, I told you earlier that to get a nice photograph, despite all the researching you do, you go there at the right time, you have to be lucky. So on this day, I consider this a lucky picture, because on this day, while the northern lights appeared on this side, on the right side, you had moonlight. So the moonlight fell on the waterfall. That is how this light came on the waterfalls, making it. This is one of my best photographs that I took in Iceland. So this is another composition of the Mount Kakafella. Actually, see, this composition, I on my own, I would have never have found this composition. This was shown by our guide. Because he's a photographer, he knows these compositions. So I went very low down in the water and took this with the shadow of the mountain, the shadow of the sky, then the rock formation, and then this rock itself. Okay, so that was the first 2 days in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. So with our cameras packed with photographs of the lava field, the waterfalls, Kakafella Foss, then the sunset, all that. We then traveled to this city here. We spent 1 night here. This was more about the beach, the black sand beach. On the way, we stopped to see the horses, plus these 2 waterfalls before we reached the town of Vik. The sunset that day was at this Dyrhóli, again a sea stack, and then the sunrise was at the Vik, at the Reynisfjara beach. So a little bit about the Icelandic horses. Like Iceland, they are little but strong. They are squat and they are muscular, and in the winter they have a long shaggy fur. Benevolent in nature, they are known to the outside world to be very friendly. That the reason for that is that they are brought up like a family. So that Icelandic horses are the only horse breed which can do 5 gaits. The gaits is ways of walking. The normal horses can generally do 3 to 4 gaits. Icelandic, so normal gaits are the walk, the trot, and the canter. On top of that, the Icelandic horse can do a tolt. A tolt is a is walking in Icelandic, but it is a very fast walk. And it is a very impressive fast walk where the horse lifts both his legs up front and then puts only one down at a time. So in landscapes where the ground is uneven, like in Iceland, this tolt is very, very useful. So the ancestors of the Icelandic horses first arrived with the Viking settlers in 860 to 935 AD from the British Isles. So these are, this is what I say, open spaces, snow-capped mountains. So these horses are kept in little fenced off places like this. So obviously this must be owned by a particular person, and then you can open the gate, walk and pet the horses and take photographs of them. So this is one picture, and this is a close-up of the two horses. Okay, so this is Sleipner Falls. This is taken from the back of the waterfall. This is a panoramic photograph that I took. I think I took about 6 or 8 pictures and stitched it together. By the way, climbing this waterfall at about this point, I fell, and I still have the scars on my legs. So again, what is beautiful is the greens and the blacks and the oranges that combine together to give this nice composition of color. This is the other waterfall. It's called Skogafoss. We took the photograph. The tripods are put very, very low to get the shadow of the fall, the reflection of the fall from the water. So this is sunset at Diholi. Again, another sea stack. This is actually after. So see on this day the sunset wasn't that dynamic, but this is after sunset. I think I've used a 30-second exposure on this shot. Of course, I used the filter, Nik filter, to bring out details of these details in the rock. If you look at my raw picture, it's a very underexposed shot. I used the Nik filters to bring out the details. But what I like about this photograph is the color combinations, the bluey, purplish sky, the green water, and these little oranges, all combining all colors that go together to give this very soothing looking photograph. Okay, so then next morning, sunrise was at this Reynisfjara beach. World famous black sand beach in south coast of Iceland, beside the sound of the small village of Vik. The unique features of the Icelandic beaches is the sand is black. That is because of the basalt lava. That is lava which is formed from cooling of the rock which is formed from cooling of lava. So this famous Reynisfjara is also, you get this again another rock formation called the Reynisdrenga. Which is also remains of a large imposing sea cliff made out of basalt due to activity of the volcano. So this is what the picture is, sunrise. I converted this photograph to black and white because I thought it gave a more dynamic look. So this is the black sand that I was talking about. See, all thick black stones. Then look at the formation in the sky. So the black and white gave a better look to it. They made the picture more dynamic. So I converted it to black and white. So this is another shot taken from the 70-200 lens at an aperture of 2.8 focused. So this is the black sand. So it is focusing this black rock and the black sand and putting the sea cliffs out of focus. Okay, so then the next 3 days was spent here at the Diamond Beach. So from this area was more about the iceberg lagoons, the diamond beaches, and yeah, it was more about the lagoons and the glaciers. Whereas this area was beach and this area was more waterfalls. This was more about the lagoon, the ice part of it, the iceberg lagoons and the glaciers. So on the way we stopped at this was I don't know how to pronounce it, but this is a canyon. So this on the way, the first stop was here the next day. So this is what the canyon looked like. It was 100 meters in depth and 2 kilometers long. This is a bracketing picture, 3 pictures bracketed together. Again, that day the sky was very dull, so I bracketed it to get the dynamic range. Bracketed in Photoshop. So, but this is the settings that I used for all 3 photographs. Okay, so the sunset that day was at this glacier lagoon called Jekusalon. It is so if you look at this is the Vantakal National Park, largest national park in Iceland, and these are all at the edge of the national park. So this is one of the largest glacier lagoons in Iceland. It is in the south part of this Vatnajökull National Park. It is situated in the head of the Breiðajökull Glacier, and it was developed due to the glacier shift receding. It developed into a lake after the glacier started receding from the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. So if you look at it, the glacier lagoons are formed as a result of the melting glaciers. And in the lagoons, you also get the huge icebergs. So the increasing volumes in these lagoons is evident of global warming. So the water volumes or the lagoons volumes in Iceland are increasing, so, which is evident of global warming. So sunset was at this lagoon. Again, that day sunset was not that dynamic, not that dramatic. So these are icebergs, and yeah, but I like the sun falling on the iceberg and the shadow of the iceberg. So this the road runs here. So this is a huge iceberg. It stretches onto this side. So across the side of the road, across the road is the famous Diamond Beach, which I'll talk about later. So next morning we were going to be at the Diamond Beach for sunrise. Before that, in the night again, we went in search of the Northern Lights. We were not lucky that day, but this picture was taken. It was pitch dark. Actually, I think we put a light on this ice cube, not ice cube, it's a rock, and then took this picture. We were not lucky that day with the Northern Lights. Actually, when we were there, we heard huge dadang noises. That was the carving of the ice of the glaciers. So suddenly you get the water levels rising. So we had to shift backwards several times because with the carving of the ice, the water levels did increase. So, okay, a little bit about this famous Diamond Beach. So the icebergs, which are in the lagoons, break away into little pieces. And it falls onto it melts and drifts out to sea. Then those little icebergs go into the sea, and then it is washed by the North Atlantic waves before it's washed ashore. So it's glistening. It's a glistening piece of ice. So the black sand beaches, therefore, is always covered in ice sculptures that glisten like diamonds. So that is why this beach is nicknamed the Diamond Beach. So I think we visited the Diamond Beach about three times. The challenge here is that these icebergs, these little ice pieces, float around all over the beach. So you got to walk around looking for nice compositions, and then you must be mindful that every time a wave comes, the ice moves, and then you also must be mindful that this is the Atlantic Ocean, and then suddenly you get a massive wave, which overpowers you as well as your cameras. Actually, I almost got overpowered once. So it was a huge challenge. So but it was a great experience. So the first day we were there, the sunrise was beautiful. Only thing is, because we were still getting used to managing this situation, the composition that we have, actually at least the composition that I have are not many, but I managed to get this. So this is the black sand, again the black sand beach, the basalt rock. And then another thing that you are taught is that when you do landscapes on the sea, you must always wait for the wave to go back. Then it gives a much nicer, smoother effect. So this is one. This is again, not on the same day, I think on another day. Again, a different formation of the ice. What I like about this picture is the sky, actually. It was a very dramatic sky. Again, another formation. So we walk around looking for these various formations, and these are some of the formations that I have got. Again, all these photographs, if you may realize that I've used a shutter speed of about 2 seconds, half a second, 1/4 of a second. So it was not very slow also, because we wanted this effect to come. So generally what you're told is to maintain the shutter speed around 2 seconds, half a second, so that you get this movement of the waves. So this is another composition. This is again on the first day. What I like about this photograph is the colors, the purples and the blues, the orange and the yellows. So actually, to tell you the truth, so this is a composition I took. Actually, I saw this and I took the composition. But when I was editing this picture, I saw this formation. So I call this the dog and the fish. So because this is like a fish and the eye of the fish, this is like a dog, little doggy, and the eye of the dog. So I call this, so this is the dog and the fish was only realized when I was doing the editing part of it. So this is the Fetchersalon Glacier Lagoon is another glacier lagoon that we visited near Jerusalem, but much smaller in size. But because it is smaller in size, you can get much closer to the ice cap. And then you have an amazing view of the Iceland's largest volcano and the highest peak, Orefakol. So these are some of the pictures of that glacier lagoon. So what I like about this photograph is the black sand, then the water, the iceberg, and then of course the mountains. And I think these are the volcanoes, the volcanic area on top of the mountain. This is another composition. This was melting ice. So you focused on this formation with this in the background. This is another formation, a different formation. Again, the melting ice, and then this in the background. So this is, say, different forms of solid ice, then the basalt, the black rock, and then the mountain, and then of course the sky here. Okay, so this is another church that we were taken to. So I call it a fairy tale-like building. Again, we walked around the church to see nice compositions. So this is one composition that I took. I used when I did the editing, I used in the levels. I used a little bit of, I increased the red in the levels to get this to get the autumny look into the photograph, with this autumn looking the leaves, and also this orange here. So this is the front of the church, the leading lines. This is again the church and the cemetery on side, and then this is a side view of the church with orange flowers. Then this is, I focused on this lamp and took the building out of focus. A composition I liked. I don't know whether everybody likes it, but I kind of like this composition. Okay, so the next visit was to Westerhorn. Westerhorn gets its name from the spiky peaks that strut up the landscape with like the horns of a bull. Westerhorn, like the Cockefeller Mountain that I showed you earlier, are two of the most photographed, if not the most photographed, two sites in Iceland. So this is the Westerhorn. So again, we were taken there at the time, like at about, I think, 2 or 3 o'clock during the golden hour, with the sun falling on the mountain. And then there are little sand dunes. You go on top of the sand dunes and take the photographs. So I use this, the grass here to like use it like a leading line to the mountain. So there was a little water pool in front of, on the other side of the mountain. So this is with the full shadow of with full reflection of the mountain, and then the reflection of the sky. Yeah, and then of course the beautiful light falling on the mountain. Again, that day we went in the night to see whether we could, so we went back, had dinner, and went in the night to see the Northern Lights, but we were not lucky. Freezing cold, very strong winds. Both Varuni and I almost got thrown away, leave alone our tripods for that wind. So we waited for a while. We were not lucky with the Northern Lights that day. Okay, so that was our trip. Then next day was, so 3 nights in that, in and around Diamond Beach. So next day was coming back to Reykjavik. So on the way again, we stopped at 2 waterfalls. Here again, very shallow fall, and then the wideness in the waterfall is what makes it beautiful. This is another waterfall. The waterfall is very small, but then look at the creek, the formation on the rock. Yeah, so like icing on the cake, on our return that day in some part of Iceland, it snowed. So, and also the day we left at the airport, we were getting into the plane, it snowed. So this is just a snow picture to show you the snow. So this is me in the snow. I will end my presentation with a small video that my good friend did for me. This video was done for me by Vasni, who is also a member of the society. Thank you, Vasni, for creating this video for me. Just a video on Iceland to end my presentation. Thank you. That's it from me. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much,
Okay,
Shanti.
that's it from me. Are there any questions that I want me to answer?
I think everybody will want to go to Iceland now.
Yes, actually, Hiran, one of the things of doing travel photography is to show people various parts of the world. If you can't travel, again, to show the beauty of it to the people, but then again, the people who want to travel, to showcase, to make them excited to go to those places.
True.
You would have had
well worth the trip.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, you would have had long sunsets and late sunsets, right?
No, now, Mitra, we were there in autumn.
Yeah.
So, sunset was at about, in the summer only, no, it gets there. So, sunset was at about, I think 6 o'clock. Right. Okay. And the sunrise is at about 7:30 in the morning, because it's autumn, mind you. So in the summer only you get the long sunsets and the short, the long day and the short night. See, in the winter, apparently the sunrise and the sunset is just like few minutes apart.
Oh. Okay.
But I was there in the autumn, Mitra.
Okay.
Very nice presentation, lovely presentation, Hiranti.
Thank you, Marcel.
And also your exposures, what you have do, the camera settings have been very good. Everybody can't get that type of shots.
Marcel, Hiranti knew you were going to ask about the
ISO.
Okay, I don't know for some reason why I have not put the ISO in as it was mostly on tripod. ISO is at most of it is no.
Oh,
you can't put auto, Marcel, because it's then the entire settings will change.
Yeah.
Generally, ISO was at about 100. Except for the northern lights, when the ISO was at about 3200, rest of it is mostly was about at about 100.
I didn't mention that 3200 in your slide, if I remember right.
I hadn't put the ISO, Ramesh, because for some reason my metadata is not showing the ISO. Huh?
No, you had some at one point. I saw 3200 somewhere.
I told you, I just mentioned it.
No, it was
Now, Hiranti, this trip you said is a photo tour.
Yeah.
That means even the guides was a photographer, you said.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's designed for photographers.
Photography, yes.
I see.
Yes.
So I didn't know that there were tours like that.
Yeah. So actually, when Varuni and I looked for a place, that was one of our main requirements, to be a photographic trip. Because if you just go on a sightseeing trip, you will just be taken to the sites. Here you are given time to photograph. So it's a photographic trip. So there are several trips like that in Iceland. There are several groups. Marcel, even that day there were several groups.
Okay.
That was a very nice the presentation. Just one question. I see that you have using very low shutter speeds. Even on the tripod, how was the wind affecting the movement on the tripod?
Yeah. So actually, in most of those pictures, Laya, the wind wasn't that strong. But the last one I told you of the Westerhorn, the wind was very strong. We just couldn't keep in the night. In the night when we went for the northern lights, the wind was very strong, and even holding the tripod was a challenge. Sometimes it can be a challenge. Yes.
A lot of people go for
Did you drive there?
What is it, Laya?
Did you drive yourself or?
No. So we went with a tour company, with Icelandic Photo Tours. So the guide is a driver as well as he's a photographer himself.
Okay.
So how many people were in your group?
My group was only Varuni and me. For some reason, something happened. I was just we were so lucky.
Great. Otherwise, you would have got some more people into your group.
Yeah, generally it's about 6 to 8 people.
I see, right. But if everybody go for photography, then there is no problem.
Yeah.
It is a very good experience, lovely tour.
Hiranti,
Yes, Mahi.
yeah, lovely presentation, and I love the information regarding Iceland as well. Want to know some of the night photographs you had, like the Milky Way at the background. Was that intentional? Did you have to make an effort to get the Milky Way other than the northern lights?
There wasn't the Milky Way. It's only the northern lights. Those are just clouds.
The little stars, those are just stars, is it?
Those are just stars. Those are just stars.
Right, okay.
Those so happen to be their mind. So that actually one of the great things about Iceland is its sky. Sometimes the sky can be very, very, very beautiful.
Right.
So even the cloud formations sometimes is exceptionally beautiful.
Right.
So from
were you told about, especially taking pictures of the Milky Way in open spaces where there is not much of artificial light? Were you all taught or explained about taking Milky Way pictures, or did you not try that?
No, I don't think the Milky Way was evident at that time of the year mine. We didn't even speak about it. It was about the northern lights.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think I don't think it was even evident mine.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Hirandi, you have been very lucky, because a lot of people go and they don't see the Aurora Borealis. They don't see the northern lights.
Yeah. So you got to be lucky. Say we also saw only second level, third level. Marcel, if we were more lucky, we could have seen the 5-6 levels where the entire sky lights up.
Yeah.
So in the winter, you see, I think it is at 5-6 levels, and then the beauty of it during the winter is that the northern light reflects on the snow. So my next trip to Iceland is going to be in the winter.
Oh, great.
How many days, Hirandi?
9 days, 8 nights, 9 days, Hiran.
It must have cost you a packet, that trip.
Yeah.
Hirandi, excellent presentation.
Hi. Thank you.
Lovely presentation.
Thank you, Sam.
Excellent information, and the pictures are beautiful. Something that I would like to ask is whether you can repeat this at the PSSL at some point in time, because I would have loved to have seen the full high definition pictures rather than the scaled down.
If PSSL allows me to, I can.
I'm sure.
Can, Sam? Can.
Yeah,
I can. Can.
Side note, I could recognize Sam. Sam, I could recognize you on a side note with the COVID lockdown, I think. You look very professorial.
Yeah.
Hi, Hirandi. This is Neela.
Hi, Neela. Hi.
Unfortunately, I saw only parts of it, and I would really love to see the whole thing.
Okay.
If PSL will, have you back again.
Okay.
Or if the recording is available.
Recording will be available, Neela. I think Ramesh puts all the recordings on our YouTube channel a couple of days after, isn't it, Ramesh?
Yes, it's we are recording it.
Because I had to multitask today. I was and I had to go for a meeting, and I was in and out.
Okay.
That's a part of it only.
Okay. So no, recording will be available in another couple of days, Neela.
Okay, right. Thank you. That was very interesting.
Hirandi, can I ask a technical question, if you don't mind?
Yes, Sam, if I can answer.
You showed a couple of pictures, I think, where you had merged several, I think, two or three pictures.
So these.
One was to get the sky and the landscape.
Yeah.
The second one was actually to get the depth.
It was mostly to get
in the canyon area where the you said 2 kilometers or 22 kilometers of river running through.
That is a bracketed shot.
Bracketed shot. But when you showed, sorry to ask this, but when you showed that the technical specifications, what you say, the settings that you showed were the same. What did you change? What did you change there?
The
focus point
or the exposure. No. So this is the same. Then you get the exposure plus and minus, Sam.
Yes.
So one was at minus 0.3, 0, and plus 0.3. So one was on the lower side and one was on the high. So minus and plus.
Right, right. Okay.
So this was a bracketing shot, but then this one, Sam, now this one is
13.
not this one.
13, no?
This one is, Sam, more two shots put together, two separate shots.
Yeah, okay.
Now this one is two separate shots. That's why I put both, I put together.
All right, okay. Got it. Thank you.
Hi Sam, good to see your goatee beard.
Yeah, he looks very professional.
After COVID. If you are seeing me after haircut and a shave.
Yeah.
You look like a relative of Karl Marx. And there's something red also on your table. I hope it's not the red book that he wrote.
Hiranti, what were the two you said you talked about two lenses, the 2470 and 7400?
So, no, Hiran. Actually, mostly I use three lenses. Mostly what I used was the 16 to 35 for the wide angle.
Right.
Actually, 2470 was used very little. So it was 16 to 35 which was used the most, and then the 70 to 200 a little bit.
Okay. So because the wide angle and the sort of the close-up shot for the detail.
That's right. So this is mostly what was used most was the 16 to 35.
Okay. That's 1.8 or
16 to 35, 2.8. 2.8. So
Hiranti used your mirrorless cameras.
Yes.
Or mirrorless.
It's a Sony maiden voyage, no?
Sony maiden voyage. Yes, you're right. I bought the Sony a few days before. I thought I'd screw it, but it was good.
Did you go to the doctor? What happened?
Hiranti, I love the black and white shot. It was great.
Yeah, that was superb.
That was superb, yeah.
I converted because the other one was not that. The black and white looked more dramatic. Yeah.
My opinion, you should have shown both. The black, the beach didn't come out as, otherwise it wouldn't come out as black because since it's a complete black and white, you don't get the contrast.
So I should have shown both to show
both would have been helpful to understand what the actual landscape is. But your picture, the black and white conversion is fantastic. I'm not denying that.
Okay.
There are a few more shots that you should convert to black and white there.
Okay.
With the cloudscapes and the whites and the blacks.
I must try, yes.
Get it on to HDR and then convert to black and white and see how it comes.
Put it on to?
HDR, work on an HDR, then convert it to black and white.
Okay.
Try that and see.
Okay.
I have a question. Did you have to walk to these places a lot or?
No, only some of the places. Mostly no, but that Sheep's waterfall we had to climb, walk a little. Some of the places, yes, the one of those glacier lagoons we had to climb and walk. So the few places, yes, but now these most of the places, no.
I take it you didn't walk into the water to take some of those small shots?
Actually, the Diamond Beach was a challenge because you are in the beach, but then suddenly you get the very strong wave coming in. It can go over you. So we want to be very careful. Actually, I almost went over. So what happens is when the wave, because you are watching the camera, so when the wave comes in, sometimes you get drifted away and then you go and hit the ice and then it's difficult to manage.
Yeah. Hiranti, you couldn't capture such waves, like do some dramatic pictures of those waves.
Yeah, I know. It's like with the what do you call this? I know what you're talking about. No, there were no pictures like that, Romesh. No.
Did you try ND filters or anything like that?
Yeah. So some of those shots now I think this one is with a filter.
Yeah.
Then Diamond Beach is with filters. So I had a set of filters. Yes.
So you will go down on your
shutter speed. So I used the 3 stops and the 6 stop mostly.
Okay.
I think in the picture when you control light and you dramatize it, landscape pictures really pop, isn't it? Another thing is your angle of view. When you sort of change that also brings out a different perspective.
So to the naked eye, without the camera and the ND filters, it's probably very bright out there when you were there, right?
No lie, I was there in the autumn, so it was not that bright.
So with the 6-stop ND filter and going down to half a second at 100 days, I would have thought that it would have been really bright.
No, because actually, see, most of the photographing of the landscapes are done either early morning or in the evening.
Okay.
So then anyway, the light is a lovely tone.
Yep.
So one of the things in landscapes is that you do early morning and in the evening, say the first 2 hours in the morning and the first 2 hours in the evenings is the most suited for landscape photography. Otherwise the light does get too harsh, then you have to use filters. Yeah. But then in some of these shots, even in the evening, I use filters to get, see, this is a 30-second shot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
To get the wave, the water like this.
So for at 100 days, say, to get 30 seconds, so you need the filter. So it must have been still reasonably a lot of light, right?
No, if you look at actually, Raya, if you look at my pictures, now this picture, I have a very underexposed picture.
Yes.
But anyway, for some reason, I do tend to keep my exposure a little underexposed so that I don't lose detail. And I use a little bit of but no lie. So a lot of photographs, all the photographs I didn't use filters. It's only in the long exposures I really used the filters. So like the church that I was taken is just a handheld photograph. No, the sun isn't very harsh. No.
Okay.
In the autumn, so I don't know. In the summer, it may get harsh.
Thanks.
Varuni can add. Is Varuni there? Yes, Varuni. Varuni, can you add something?
He is constantly silent.
Yeah. So one thing is, I think Hiranti and I both switched from Nikon to Sony just before this trip. And I think most of these pictures are manually focused, isn't that correct?
Yeah, all manually focused. No. Manually focused. Yes, Varun. Yes.
Because of the mirrorless camera, the focus peaking is there. It's very easy to do that. I think it would have been difficult with the Nikon.
Yeah.
Was that the reason that you went from Nikon to Sony? The focus peaking.
And also the weight, Laya.
Yeah, that's the main concern.
Weight is when you travel, weight becomes and the tech and I'll tell you. So this is actually, as Hiran said, my maiden trip with the camera. I was very impressed with the focusing ability and the sharpness in the pictures.
Yeah, weight is a big problem when you're traveling.
Yes, when you travel, yes. Yeah.
And all these photographs are raw. You took raw photographs.
Raw, yes, all raw. All raw, yes. All raw and editing done thereafter.
Yeah.
Hi, Hiranti. This is Vazni.
Hi, Vazni.
Just want to know...
Thank you for the video.
No problem. My pleasure. Just wanted to know if I'm planning to do a visit probably next year, what sort of budget I should plan? Very important question, I believe.
Okay, so the tour alone was $4,200.
$4,200, okay.
Yeah, that is the tour. So it doesn't include food, entire travel, accommodation, and then the guide and all those things was $4,200. And then on top of that, you got to add the article. And then the food is also not that cheap in Iceland.
That's
Did you get any vegetarian food?
Oh yeah, and I was actually quite amazed. I had no problem in vegetarian food. They do have, Sam. Yeah.
Great.
Lovely. Good to know.
So Hiranti, just to be fair by the other brands like Nikon, they also do have focus peaking.
Yeah. So I didn't say. No. We were talking, Varun, we were talking about our cameras. Yes, they do. Yeah. All mirrorless has, no? All mirrorless have.
I think Fuji's one better than the Sony.
Maybe, yes. That is what you have, right?
Yeah, that's because I have that. No, I just was a joke.
In the mirrorless cameras, one of the major assets is they're so quiet, especially in churches, inside the churches and such like.
Yeah, very quiet.
The clunky is not there, and of course the lenses tend to be little shorter because the distance from the bayonet point to the
is less. Yeah.
length is smaller.
Less. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then can I ask you how you took all the equipment, the airline, and you had to put it on hold, or you took it?
No, I hand carry. So Hiran, now this was only the wide. So now when I went to Africa with the 600, I hand carried everything. I don't put anything on hold.
From the airline, they have a
no. So weight can be a problem. Weight can be a problem, but then you divide it between two. You don't carry a handbag. You carry the camera bag. So like that I managed. This was not that bad, but on the wildlife trips, when you have to take the 600, it's a challenge.
But tripod and all would have anyway gone.
Tripod went in the suitcase. Yes, tripod. Then the filters went in the suitcase.
Was with you.
The filters also was in the suitcase. The cameras and the lenses was with me.
And you took a laptop also? Or?
Laptop, yes. Laptop was also hand carried.
Yeah, that's separate.
Kiranti?
Yes, Sam.
Just another technical question. You said that you all did manual focusing mostly. And where did you actually try to some sort of a technique?
Where did you? I can't hear you.
Where did you focus?
Okay.
How did you decide on that?
Yeah. So if we do take this picture, Sam.
Yes.
So because it's a wide angle, Sam.
Yeah.
So if you take this picture, I focused on this, right? But because the aperture is at f13, even the entire thing is in focus.
All right. Okay.
Apertures are small. What do you call it? Small apertures, though, Sam.
It depends on the depth of the picture, also, isn't it, Hira?
Yeah, and but when you see through this thing, you see the areas of focus. It shows you. So if I took this, I focused on this, but then I looked and even these areas were in focus because it's at f30.
Right. Sam wants to know whether you used a hyperfocal distance chart.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
He didn't use a hyperfocal chart. But my problem was actually because of this bandwidth issues and all that. The picture quality that we see is much less than what your original.
Okay.
And that's why I was getting confused where the focusing was.
But if you pictures the entire picture generally is in focus.
I'm looking forward to that high definition, good quality pictures.
Okay. If you want, okay. Yeah. Can do.
You can do a coffee table book and Sam can bite.
Yeah.
He will present it.
Kiranti, I was just going through that your photo tour people on the web. They have packages from $1,800 going up to about $7,000.
Is
depending
it?
on the number of days. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So ours was a 8 night, 9 day. They have 15-day ones as well. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, they have 11 days. That is Antarctica. 11 days, $17,000.
Iran, you'll have to be a good swimmer to make it to right, sir.
$50 for 4 days.
Yeah, that is 3 or 4 days. No, 4 days.
Yeah, 4 days. 4 days, Northern Light and Ice Cave photo tour.
Yeah, so that is ice caves are in the winter.
Okay. So the basic package is from 1,850 to about 4,000, 5,000, I think. That's between that.
Yes.
That's the basic amount.
Hiranti, do you remember the guy who came and did the presentation, the exotic tours, Singapore guy? He does these exotic tours like at Arctic or Atlantic, right? Or which place can you really go?
Both places you can go.
No, one place, the top you can't, right? What is the bottom place?
Antarctic.
Antarctic. Yeah, you get Antarctic tours.
Yeah.
During, and I think it's, I think Hiran can really look into it. He's interested.
Yeah, beautiful animals you photograph. Now, Harshana, if he's here, Harshana's father went to both the Arctic and the Antarctic.
Really? Well, to carry back all your refuse, no? That's a problem.
Is it?
It is big.
Yeah, you can't leave anything back.
Hiranti, you showed 3 churches. The second one?
Yeah, this one.
With the white walls and the red roof?
This one. This one?
Yeah.
Sam,
beautiful shot. Yeah. Beautiful place. How do you pronounce the name?
I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know.
The photographic guide would have given you all the pronunciations and all, correct?
Yeah, so whatever I could pronounce, I pronounced. Whatever I couldn't pronounce, I kept silent.
First I thought it was a typo.
No, this is actually what it is. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if this is actually an Icelandic.
J is silent in the.
Say J is silent. Yes, yes.
So you don't pronounce the J.
Yeah, yeah.
Twist your tongue and, you know.
Rockefeller Foss. Yeah, you don't pronounce the J.
One church look like a buried church, no?
Yeah, it's like it's like the grass is grown very high. Actually, it is from that view, Mitra. If you look at it, so from that view, the grass is very high. But if you look at it in front here, so but then of course there is grass on the roof as well.
Roof.
Yeah. So from this view, and I have gone down and taken the photograph. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Hiranti. And I think before we wind up, we have to give an opportunity for the interest group leaders to make their to give us the update on. So Hiranti, you have to start with it. Let me share the screen again.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Hiranti, you want to?
Okay, so we had this on the, what was the date? 30th of May. Yeah. So so the Wildlife and Nature Group first meeting on Zoom was on the 30th of May, where Harshana did a presentation on captures of pantanal, and which was followed by a critiquing session where the members sent photographs and we critiqued it among ourselves. Yeah, and the next meeting is on the third Wednesday, which is the 17th, yeah, where we will have a discussion on post-processing of wildlife photographs by Rajiv Vadikar.
Right. Next to Hiran. Hiran, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. This is what we are going to do. On the 21st of June, it is open to all the paid members of the group, and it's going to be Bandara's, Mr. Pandula Bandara's cousin Rajit Rajapakse is going to do this presentation. It's going to be in English and just all about Lightroom to people who don't know anything about Lightroom. Yeah, that's what we're planning to do.
Thanks, Hiran.
Yeah.
Ravi? Ravi, are you there?
Yeah. Due to current situation, no field activities. We had our meeting 8 February, May 8, presentation Unseen Bangkok done by me. And our next meeting, we are planning to have 26th Friday, last Friday, Sam, Street Beyond the Street. So at the moment, we have, that's all.
Okay.
Nice lighting, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all. If you have any questions, we can take it up now, and if not,
Machang, yeah, there was a landscape presentation, Machang, but it's all done. You can see the video later. I'll call you back, Machang. It's on the middle of the presentation. Yeah, you can soon. Yeah, get in now, but too late, Machang. I'll call you. Okay.
if you have any other comments,
why don't you say something about the AGM and anything?
Right.
Any arrangements?
Okay. So all of you would have received the notice of the annual general meeting that we are going to have it on the 27th, Saturday at 3:30. We are going to have these for the first time via it's online meeting because of the current situation. We may have to restrict the participation as per the constitution only for the paid members, and also we may have to put a cutoff time for admitting participants also for the meeting, because technically it's going to be challenging to check and admit participants once we have started the meeting. Therefore, we would once we share the links, we will give you the time lines for you all to join the meeting, and we would appreciate everyone to kind of stick to those timelines and join the meeting. So if you have any resolutions to be taken up at the meeting, you need to send it to me 7 days prior to the AGM. And that's it about the AGM. And I would like to just again remind you that next week, so on the 13th, we are having the basic Photoshop course. And also on the 14th at 4 p.m., we have LIAS presentations. I hope all of you will join the LIAS presentation on the 14th as well.
Shamini, just touching on the AGM.
Yes.
I think it would be pertinent to mention that we are within the constitution to have a online AGM.
Yes.
So our constitution doesn't bar us doing that. So if there is any concern that any member has on that, I think that would need to be clarified. And I believe you are going to have the AGM on MS Teams, right? Microsoft Teams or on Zoom? Which one would you want to do?
We will look at both options, and Ramesh will decide, see what would be a convenient one for us, and we'll advise everyone.
Right. Thanks.
Shamini and Ramesh.
Yes.
You all have given a timeline of 7 days for any other matters to be brought up or special resolutions to be brought in. If I remember correctly, the cutoff time was 31st January. Are we creating a precedence here? Just look at it.
Sam,
okay.
if you can, yes, we can. For resolutions to be submitted before 31st of January, is it?
My recollection is that.
We will look at that, Sam.
Yeah.
But
I may be creating a precedence which can't be taken away later.
Okay. Sam, when we looked at the constitution, it was 14 days prior, if I'm not wrong. But if it is wrong,
just double check. I can't remember.
Yeah, we'll check on it.
Exactly. Okay. But there was some. It was not definitely 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? If there's no other points, we can.
Ramesh, what about the same committee and same committee go on till the next year? Because with this situation, is there a way of doing that? So you don't have to.
Well, you can propose that, Mitra. It's a democratic society, so we can't necessarily impose our will on it. If that's your view, I mean, certainly you can put forward and see what the membership feels.
Yeah. I think most of the society is doing it, I think.
Yeah, and I must say thank you very much for the confidence, Mitra. I'm especially coming from somebody like you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And on the same note, there was another email received today as well. So one member has proposed the same thing.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
No, I think that
we'll proceed with the.
Yeah, we need to see how we progress and change. Sometimes when the same people continue, it becomes stagnant. Like stagnant water doesn't help anybody, and it ceases to be fresh. So let's see how it goes.
Because of the situation, so it's not easy to get the people together, and I don't know how this thing is on Zoom or whatever.
Because there are always smarter guys than us out there, so I suppose let's wait.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's no other comments, queries, so let's wrap it up. And thank you very much, Kiranti, for your lovely presentation. And also thanks to all the interest group leaders, as well as all the members who participated today, and as you have been participating in other sessions. And hope to see you all on the 14th. And good night.
Thank you, Shamini.
Good night. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.